Alright, so guys, we're going to do a gradated value scale. So this is not, and I'm not sure what some of you guys did in Fine Art 1 or if you did a value scale in Drawing Painting 1. But typically, value scales, you have steps, so each value has its own little box. What we're going to do is we're going to do a gradated value scale. And the reason why I want you to do a gradated value scale is I want you to practice sort of blending and transitioning between those values so that you can work on gradation. Because there will be areas of your portrait where you have values that gradate together. And so you want to practice just making that transition seamless. And then, of course, there's going to be lots of areas that there is no gradation between the values. You might see them, a really dark value next to a very light value. Some of your shadows will have very specific shapes. So we're going to practice just gradation on this. You guys can see the scale that I have at the top here is finished. The one down here is the one that I'm going to do with you guys. You should have 3 different pencils. You need to have a 4H, which is going to be your lightest pencil. You need a 3B, which is your medium one, and then 6B, which is your darkest pencil. Now, what you guys can see over here off to the side on my sketchbook paper is I have all these little swatches here. What I'm doing is I'm actually prepping my pencil for shading. So I'm just going to do this with the 4H since this is the one I'm going to start with. Whenever you take a fresh pencil like this, and especially one that's just been sharpened, a lot of times when you start shading you get just like lines like that. And I'm going to try to zoom in so you guys can see this a little bit better. But yeah, you're just going to get lines. But what you want is something that's going to give you that nice smooth look. So what I do is I basically take my pencil and I kind of sand down an edge so that I can have a nice sort of flat edge on that graphite to shade with. So instead of having this line work here, this harsh line, I'm going to get something that's really nice and smooth and even too covers a little bit more area than just the point of my pencil. So just go ahead right now, pick up your 4H pencil and start prepping it for shading. And I do that with all my pencils before I shade with them. So it's good, and everybody's a little different on how they like to do this stuff, but I do like to have a scrap piece of paper when I'm shading something next to me, and that's what I'm doing. I'm just kind of prepping the edge of whether it be a pencil, soft pastel, oil pastel, whatever. I'm kind of using that extra paper to prep the top of that. All right, so what we're going to do first, and again, I think it's important to say that there are a million different ways you can go about doing a scale like this. I'm a little bit of a scaredy cat. I like to take my time. I feel like if I take my time, I can control what I'm doing better, and I get a better product because of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and start with my 4H pencil since it's my lightest pencil. I'm not making any huge commitments, and I'm just going to put a layer of 4H under all of this. So the thing that I like about doing it this way is that, one, it kind of gives me an opportunity to kind of practice shading this area before I commit to the value. So it's just an opportunity to just kind of get my feet wet, so to speak. A lot of times when I start stuff like this, I'm a little rusty. So this just helps me kind of warm up a little bit. It's just like when figure drawing and we do those gestures. This is my way of warming up for shading. Okay. So I'm just going to go ahead and fill in this end, and this is going to be my darkest end too. So that's why it's a nice place to start, even with my lightest pencil. Because again, if I mess up with a 4H, I'm just going to end up covering it up with my 6B eventually anyway. So it's a good place to kind of get some of those mistakes out of your system. Now it's important to say, guys, that when you do shade, you can control your value in a lot of different ways. You control it by the number of layers you have of graphite. You can also control it in the pressure. So if I want to make my value look darker, I'm definitely going to add more pressure down on my pencil. That's why I really believe all you need is just 3 pencils to make everything happen. So I'm just going to go ahead and just kind of keep dragging this down towards the left side, which is where my lightest side is going to be. And I am going to kind of lighten up on my pressure as I move over to the left. just naturally kind of lightening this up. Now, I know all of this is going to get darker, and that's fine. This is, again, just my way of kind of warming up and getting my feet wet. The other thing, too, and I learned this from one of my drawing professors at Miami, is that regardless of what value he needed to do, he always liked to put he liked to layer up the pencils because he felt like that unified all of the graphite, because a 4H pencil has a much different, it has a different kind of gray color to it than like a 3B or 6B. So by putting a layer of 4H under even all of your darker areas, it just helps to kind of tie everything in and make it feel like it belongs. So it's a good way to kind of unify stuff. So I'm getting closer to my lightest side. Now you are going to leave the far left side white. So there should be no pencil there. Okay, so leave that far left side, just a section of it, just alone. Leave it alone. And then I'll just go back through and just kind of patch up things. So if you learned how to do these scales a different way, you can definitely kind of take what works best for you, take a little bit of what you learned from one teacher and another, and just kind of put it together and make your own little technique. But like I said, there's more than one way to do this. There's a million, to be quite honest. So I've got a nice layer of 4H on there, so I'm going to go ahead and pick up now my 3B pencil, which is my next value in pencil. Again, I'm going to start off by kind of prepping my edge. And you'll notice that it takes you a lot less time to prep your edge with your 3B pencil than it does your 4H. It's just because this is a softer pencil. And again, I'm going to start at the end, and I'm going to work my way down. So I'm going to start over here on the far right side. And you can tell already just how different the color of gray is on the 3B pencil. So. I'm just going to go ahead and just give everything a light layer. And a lot of times I'll just kind of go back and forth and just kind of patch up anything that needs to be filled. And I'll just kind of keep dragging this down. But again, as I'm moving to the left, I am lightening up my pressure. And this is another thing, too, you'll learn about graphite, guys, is that it's always easier to go darker. Not so easy to go lighter once you've kind of got some of those darker values down. So that's why I like to kind of take my time to build this stuff up, because I can kind of read when I need to stop a little bit better. So then I'm just going to keep going back through, layering it more and more wherever it needs to get darker. Now, I was thinking about having you guys do this on a worksheet, but the problem with doing it on a worksheet is that the paper, it's that Xerox paper, and it's kind of too smooth. So that's why we're doing this in your sketchbook. So it's got better tooth to it. It's going to grab onto the graphite a lot better. And this is, much more, this is similar to the paper you have your portrait on anyway, so. So again, when you're ready, you can add pressure to your pencil to make it darker. And the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and drop my 3B, and I'm going to pick up my 6B and start trying to get this darkest side established. And again, I'm always a little bit of a scaredy cat, so I'll just start lighter just to kind of get things started. And then eventually I'll go back and just put a lot of pressure down to make it darker. Now, as with anything in here, craftsmanship is key, so try to keep your edges looking nice and clean. Doesn't matter if it's in your sketchbook or not, you should always be practicing good craftsmanship, so try to keep everything looking nice. So then when I'm ready, I'm going to really start putting down some heavy pressure on this right side to get that dark. Now you really want this right side to be as dark as you possibly can make it. That means you're going to be putting a lot of layers down, and you're going to be putting a lot of pressure down. Now shading and practicing shading, doing like a scale like this is really easy, guys. All you need is a piece of paper, a pencil. You can even do this with a ballpoint pen. It doesn't matter. I would, definitely recommend any of you guys who are really looking to fine-tune your techniques and just become a better artist. These are some of the things that are great to do on those days you're just not feeling too creative. No one is creative 24/7, so, when you're feeling like you have a lack of creativity, you should just practice your techniques. Practice shading, practice with forms, like you could practice shading spheres, cubes, cylinders, cones, things like that. Those are all good things that are, to be honest with you, very easy to do. You don't really need too much to practice it. And it's kind of relaxing too, because you don't really have to think too hard about what it is that you're doing. So, and then before you know it, something creative will probably pop in your head while you're doing it. So I'm just going to continue to build this up, keeping my pressure light when I want it to be light, and then really doing a lot of heavy pressure when I want it to be darker. So when you guys are finished with your scale and you think you're done with it, the next thing for you to do is just bring it up to me. Let me see it so I can plug in a grade for this activity, and then the rest of the class period is for you guys to kind of fix up your drawings, make any more adjustments, catch up on anything you might have fallen behind on. But that's what you'll do for the rest of the bell. Okay? That's it.